Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham Ekam, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham Ekam, Hamza Soham. Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham Ekam, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham, Hamza Soham
Let me tell you a story. This is an incident that happened in the life of Buddha. Once Buddha was in an assembly when a man walked in looking furious. He thought Buddha was doing something wrong. He was drawing a huge crowd and people would just go to him and meditate. He was a restless businessman and he had found that his children were spending their time with Buddha when they could have engaged themselves in business, making more money and ensuring their livelihood. He felt that spending 4 hours of the day seated next to someone whose eyes were always closed was a complete waste of time. So he was very upset. And with anger in his heart, he walked confidently up to Buddha. As soon as he approached Buddha, all his thoughts disappeared, but the anger in him did not dissipate. He was shaking in anger, but he found himself speechless. Since he was unable to express his emotions in words, he simply spat on Buddha's face. Buddha, in return, simply smiled. His disciples who were sitting with him were furious. They wanted to react, but the Buddha's presence didn't allow them to do so. They just couldn't believe someone could behave in such a disrespectful manner with the Buddha. But they couldn't say anything. And this man could not stay long either. He noticed his action had not drawn any reaction from the people around him. And the Buddha had simply smiled in return. So he walked away. Once he returned home, this man couldn't erase the image of the smiling Buddha from his mind. For the first time in his life, he had met someone who had given such an extraordinary response to such a disrespectful act. He could not sleep all night, and his whole body transformed. He was shivering, shaking. He felt as though he was breaking within, and his world had collapsed. The next day, he went and fell at Buddha's feet and said, "Please forgive me. I did not know what I was doing." To which Buddha replied, "I cannot forgive you." Everyone, including Buddha's disciples, was shocked at these words that Buddha uttered. All his life, Buddha had been so compassionate. He had accepted everyone regardless of their past. And now he was telling this man that he could not forgive his behavior. Buddha explained, "Why should I forgive you when you have not done anything?" The businessman replied, "Yesterday I came to this assembly, and in my anger, I spat on your face. I am the same person." Buddha placed his palm upon his heart and said, "That person is not here anymore. If I ever meet the person on whom you spat, I will tell him to forgive you." So, what truly is forgiveness? What does it take for one to forgive someone? Let us go deeper into it today. Namaste. I have listened to the lives of thousands of people in the spiritual intensives I lead around the world. And most people hold hate for someone or the other. Probably for most of you, hate is a strong word. Most of you would rather prefer to describe your experience as a strong dislike or anger or resentment towards somebody who has caused you emotional pain or loss. Let us remove our focus from words and expressions and get to the actual inner experience. When someone lets you down, when someone takes away something precious to you, when someone betrays your trust in them, when someone dislikes you or hates you, when someone has constantly been insensitive, rude, or disrespectful towards you, what do you feel within? How do you feel? Take a moment to recognize your inner state. Whether it is resentment that builds over several months and years, or despise and rage that flares instantaneously, I want you to know that every form of hate is inner violence directed towards another. As you immerse yourself deeper and deeper in these feelings of animosity towards another, you lose yourself. You come to a point when you become a stranger to yourself. There are four kinds of responses that you could give when you are gripped by inner violence. I want to describe these responses through different characters in the great Indian epic Mahabharata. Duryodhana and Dharmaraja both felt wronged. Duryodhana because he was denied of ruling the entire kingdom, even though he was the eldest son of the family, just because he was born to a blind man. He hated the idea of his kingdom being divided and given away to his much hated cousins. There was a fire of revenge that was seething within him. Dharmaraja was also wronged because his rightful kingdom was taken away from him. His wife was humiliated in front of the entire court, and their kingdom was not returned to them, even though they endured unimaginable hardships for 13 years in exile. Is this not what happens in a hurting relationship? Both parties, you have a logic for why you are right and why you were wronged by the other. And the other too has his or her logic for why they are right and you wronged them. Anger and antagonism does not dissolve by measuring who is more right and who is more wrong. It never dissolves that way. Now let us see how both these warriors gave a totally different response to each other and to life. Let us look into their responses. The character of Duryodhana reflected the path of indulgence that much of humanity takes. He was angry and jealous from childhood, and over the years, it turned into resentment and hate because of the continuous injustice he perceived was meted out to them. He was waiting for the right opportunity to strike back and finish his cousins. He spent every waking hour visiting and revisiting the injustice he perceived was done to him. His anger, hate, and animosity was like a wound that he never allowed to heal. He kept on meddling with the wound by constantly revisiting in his mind, by constantly talking about it to people. He kept stoking up the fire of hate in himself, recounting his humiliations to his best friend and brothers over and over again so that it never died out. And in fact, it became a monster that did not allow him to sleep or wake peacefully. And when the time arrived, they unleashed this hate as violence during the war. This path of indulgence is what is trodden by most people because they are unconscious. They are not conscious of the destructive impact of their words and actions unleashed in a state of hate. Then we have Dharmaraja, the eldest cousin and competitor to the throne. He refused to fan the fire of hate. He knew that actions arising from hate would destroy individuals and break down families and society. He knew that when two powerful people hated each other, the consequence will be suffered by many, many innocents. The path he took was to follow the path of forgiveness. He lived peacefully through all the trials and difficulties of his life. He was like a balm and a beacon for so many. I am not saying Dharmaraja was without flaws, but his greatest strength was his ability to let go of bitterness and forgive his enemies. He tried to avoid war in a million ways. Unfortunately, there were too many people on his side and Duryodhana's side who wanted war, and war became inevitable. Remember this: your hurt hurts you, your forgiveness frees you. Your hurt hurts you, your forgiveness frees you. Forgiveness is never about the other, it is about your own freedom. Please know that if you lived in an inner state of war, externally too, you will be warring. If you internally lived in a state of peace, externally too, situations would dissolve themselves and peace will flow. One of the leaders I mentor is a woman who was in a very conflicting relationship with her husband. As Shipritaji and I led her on the path of enlightenment, there came a point where all bitterness disappeared from her heart. She was established in a state of great peace. When she went back home, her husband suggested divorce. She did not refuse it. But when he wanted to involve the lawyers, she said that they could separate peacefully without any lawyers. In fact, when her husband asked what part of the property she wanted, she told him that she would take whatever he gave her with a blessing in his heart. Her husband was deeply impacted by her peace and evolution. Together, they held two companies over the years. Even after the divorce, they still hold the companies jointly. They vacation with their children as a family. They are now the best of friends, even though they are divorced as husband and wife. If you can realize the pain that anger and animosity inflicts upon you and all your loved ones, you will let go of it. Remember, letting go of hurt is forgiveness. Remember, life is like a river with so many bends and turns. If you can let go of anger, disappointment, and hate whenever they arise, and you live in a powerful state of peace, your life will be like a miracle. What someone has wrongfully taken from you, life will give you back. The love you have lost will come back through so many avenues. Remember, I am not preaching forgiveness, nor am I asking you never to go to court. All I am saying is stay in the realization that your hurt hurts you, your forgiveness frees you. Namaste. Have a beautiful day in a beautiful state.